This is Women of Grace Live, discussing issues important to your life and faith. Spiritual insight, practical wisdom. Join us as we transform the world one woman at a time. Women of Grace, for such a time as this. Now, here's your host, Johnnette Williams.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Women of Grace Live. I am Johnnette Williams. I am so very pleased and happy to be with you. It's really a privilege, and I look forward to it each weekday. We're with you at this very same time on this very same channel that you're listening to or platform. We're with you in so very many ways, but we always love to give a shout out to our affiliates who carry our program. We love our affiliates so very much. We want to remind you to support your affiliate. That's why you hear all of these good programs brought to you via EWTN radio, because your affiliates have made that sacrifice. So if you can make a sacrificial offering to them, I certainly know that they would appreciate it. They stay on the air because of you, and we stay on the air in your area because of them. So it all works together. All things work together for the glory of God. Amen? I hope you're saying a big amen, Johnnette. Amen. And hallelujah. Well, today is Wednesday. It's Wacky Wednesday. You know that Sue Brinkmann is with us. I was going to say, you know that the Wacky Women of Wednesday, Sue Brinkmann and myself, come together on this day to talk about some of the oddities that we see going on. In terms of, religious kind of ideas, spiritual kinds of ideas, as well as a lot of supposed health therapies that are really superstitions. But I'll tell you, we've got people flocking to these things all of the time. So we like to uncover them because we don't want you to be deceived. We really do want for you to know the truth from the falsehood. We don't want you falling into the hands of counterfeit therapies and counterfeit ideologies. So we try to do our very best to make things present to you. Now, you know that Sue writes our New Age blog that is there at our website, womenofgrace.com. We've got, well over 1,000. We're inching towards 2,000 questions and answers that are out there for you on a variety of topics having to do with these kinds of issues. We want you to make use of it. Actually, we know, websites are international, you know that. But so is our radio program, and so is our television program. And Sue is on radio every week. She's on television with me occasionally, not often enough, I might say. But all of that being said, we've got people around the world, including exorcists in the country and out of the country, that access our New Age blog on our website. So, it's very high quality. Sue is a master researcher. She is a meticulous researcher, and she's a straight up researcher. She is not trying to skew information. She is very unbiased in the way in which she presents it. Obviously, she gives it to us through the lens of the church in terms of summary, but she puts the information out there, and it's there. She tells you what it's all about. That's all presented that way. But then, we will help you to see how does this not measure up with what the church teaches. So it's very reliable. It's a reliable source. In addition to that, in our library area on our website, which you'll see up there in the navigational bar, if you click on that, you will be able to access her podcast, which is Grace Under Fire, Exposing the Darkness. And here she does a similar thing, but she does it by way of video. So you can actually, see Sue presenting to you, unlike radio. And I'm not there, so it's a little less wacky than Wacky Wednesdays, but it is ever so very, very helpful. We love to receive questions from you, and we do have a comment line by which you can leave them when we are not on the air. And the number for you to use is the very same one that you use when you call in during the program when it's live, and that's 833-288-EWTN. 833-288-EWTN. That's for our program and all of the programs on EWTN. The last live show that's produced at EWTN ends at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and then that number, 833-288-EWTN, becomes the listener comment call line, and you can leave your question there. Just if you put in the subject that it's for Wacky Wednesday, or then Jeff will be able to retrieve it. He gets all that stuff anyway, but it's just easier for him when he's trying to sort out to figure which email box does he put it into. So we invite you to leave your questions that way. And every once in a while, as you well know, we love to dip into that bag and of calls, and we like to address them specifically without taking calls. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do that today as Sue joins me. And we go into, is it really a continuation of something that we did a little while back? And we were going through a list of blogs that she has written. You can go out and get more information on them. But these are ones where we get, a lot of questions. And it's also some of the more strange kinds of issues that pop up too. So we're going to go into that bag today. And before we go to the first break, let's just bring Sue on right away here. Hey, Sue. Good morning.
Hey. Oh, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
My Wacky Wednesday woman partner. That's what we are. I like that. The Wacky Women of Wednesday. I like that.
Ooh, I like that. Hey, listen, that could be a book. Maybe we need to think about that. That would be that would be a wacky but very useful book.
Yes, yes, it would.
It would indeed. Yeah. So we were talking there for a moment about the fact that we've been doing this for a number of years, and we've just got such a compendium. As a matter of fact, you've got a New Age compendium, but we've also got a compendium of questions and answers that are there. And we really do want to help people because this stuff just doesn't go away. It just seems to proliferate. It's like a weed in the garden. It just keeps growing and it overtakes everything if you don't tend to it.
That's right. The minute you pull out the one weed, another weed just pops up right next to it, and you just keep going on and on and on. But we just keep attacking them one by one, little by little, and just stay on top of it. And I'm just grateful for all the people that do write to us and do ask those questions, because that is a great act of charity. If you think about it, Johnnette, It's a great act of charity towards your brothers and sisters in Christ that you're asking a question. Hey, should I be doing this? Because we can answer that question, whether or not a Catholic Christian should be involved in a certain activity that seems New Age. And we can educate a lot of people just from your one question. So, and we never think any question is too silly or too small. We will answer everything, and you'll get a personal response. And even if it's just to say, hey, we wrote about it, here's the blog, and we'll refer you to that blog. But we will get back to you if you do take the time out to write to us. We take the time out to read it and to respond to you.
Absolutely. Every single one gets read. And, I just want to ask you this question because I think it's one that many people would, have in their own heart. And here's my question for you on behalf of them. And that is, how do you keep your equilibrium? I mean, you are steeped in this research, and that this after a while can really drain you unless you've got some safeguards in place. So share with us a little bit about how you do that. We've just got a minute before this break here. Probably going to go to it right away, but give us some insight.
Two things I can tell you right off the top. Number one is prayer. Stay very close to God, in particular the practice of the presence of God. I like to know I'm with him every second of the day. And I just hide myself in him. And the second one is I have a sense of humor, and I keep a sense of humor. You got to laugh, Johnnette. Some of this stuff is just really, it's so wacky. And you think, I don't believe people believe this stuff, but they do. And you have to keep your sense of humor about it and be able to laugh.
Yes.
Otherwise, you'll get a little too dark, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I know you, and Sue does have a great sense of humor, and I know she has a very deep contemplative prayer life as a third order Carmelite. And I also know that part of that prayer life is adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, and Mass and the Rosary and all of those good things. So that's good advice for all of us, Sue. We're going to a break. When we come back, we're going to head into some of these issues, so we're inviting you to stay with us. Well, there you have it. That is the music for Wacky Wednesday. It sounds a little ominous. It sounds a little spooky. And that's because we talk about ominous and spooky things. But, the thing of it is, we bring the light of truth to all of those things. And so the darkness dissipates, the spookiness dissipates, right? The ominous sense and foreboding dissipates, because nothing can stand up under the truth. And that's why we have got to dress ourselves in the truth, know the truth, because Jesus says it's the truth that sets us free. So, Sue, I'm looking at this long list, and you and I made some progress on this list a couple of weeks back, which is why we're back here again. We want to go a little bit more deeply into this list. I want to bring one up that I frequently get asked about. And I know that what we're going to talk about here, there's a lot of people that engage in this. I know priests that have engaged in this, some that are very adept at it. And yet we've got to be very cautious, if not disregard it altogether. And this has to do with martial arts. And we're going to talk a little bit about karate today. So share with us.
Yes. We had a letter from someone who was, she had a dear friend, a Catholic, very devout, practicing Catholic, had 5 children, and he had several black belts in all sorts of martial arts. And he came to their house one night and gave them like a little family karate lesson. It was just good family fun. They were enjoying it. She said everything was great. The stretching and the exercising were great. But then she said, and she wrote to us, she said this, the problem is last night I had nightmares, and it had to do with evil. I know God speaks to us in our dreams, and I don't know if he was trying to say this is a bad thing or if it was the enemy trying to discourage us from sharing good family time together because he would rather have us sitting down and watching TV. Now, of course, it's impossible for us to say, whether or not that dream had any connection at all to the karate lesson. But, the fact that it was something disturbing and it disturbed her and she herself associated with the karate, I suggested that maybe she take that up with her spiritual director or her parish priest. But the thing to remember about martial arts is that almost all of these are rooted in Eastern spirituality. The one that she was talking about was Okinawan karate that does have an Eastern and Oriental worldview. It is based upon that. But some forms of karate martial arts are more religious than others. For example, judo, jujitsu, taekwondo, which is Korean karate, they have a low spiritual emphasis. Karate, on the other hand, requires meditation, which usually involves emptying the mind of distractions. But since karate is primarily a physical martial art, the meditation aspect, you can divorce it from the actual practice. So, but
you
other
can,
forms,
C-A-N?
Yes,
you can okay.
divorce that from it.
Okay.
You don't have to necessarily do that. But other forms are more problematic. Aikido, the word means the way to union with the universal force. And this force that they're talking about is chi. We don't believe in chi, nor does science support the concept of a universal life force. So a practitioner of Aikido is ultimately uniting himself or herself with a false god. You don't want to get involved in that. Ninjutsu is another form that's not compatible with Christianity because it professes a pantheistic worldview that believes all is God. We believe all is in God, not that God is all, right? So Tai Chi,
that's really a good distinction. I like that.
Yeah, we believe all is in God, not that God is all.
That's right.
And it's a very important one because that's what separates. That's what makes it pantheistic is the fact that they believe that everything is God.
Is God. Mm-hmm.
That's why they have all these different gods and why they worship all these different gods because they believe that there's some divinity in everything, including themselves, and therefore, they want to become enlightened to their inner divinity, and they practice meditation techniques that have to do with the mind blanking and that in order to induce an altered state, which they believe leads to enlightenment about this inner divinity. So that's how it all ties together there. Tai Chi is another one that's off limits because it involves the practice of Taoism. And Taoism is a Chinese philosophy that emphasizes living in harmony with the Tao. And the Tao is defined as the source of everything. It's like the God, the ultimate principle of life is the Tao. So you don't want to get involved in anything like that. So there's a lot of gray areas in the practice of martial arts. And I came across one article where they're saying there's 6 points that a Christian should consider before becoming involved in the martial arts. And the first one is to examine your motives, to be sure you're getting involved for the right reasons, for self-defense, rather than because you want to be a tough guy and show off, right? Second, examine your conscience and determine how do you feel about using maneuvers, blows, and kicks that could severely injure someone in a hostile encounter. How do you feel about that? Third, you should realize that the practice of the martial arts requires discipline and strenuous training. Will it take time away from your vocation in life or your religious commitments? Fourth, consider the instructor. Is he or she a Christian? Are they practicing the faith? Are they doing so with an Eastern worldview or a non-religious context? So you got to be careful of that, who your instructor is. Fifth, is the classroom littered with Eastern religious books, symbols, statues? You don't want to be in an environment like that. And sixth, consider if your involvement in the martial arts might cause scandal to a weaker Christian brother or sister. So we should be careful of that. that we don't lead them to think that, oh, I can get involved in all kinds of Oriental mysticism because my friend who I look up to is practicing martial arts. You want to be careful not to cause scandal in that way. So you have to be very careful and very discerning about your martial arts. And I always say that if you have a spiritual director, you should take that up with them and see what he or she has to say about that as far as your involvement. But as I said, they're all a little different. So look at what you're practicing and to see how deeply that is involved in the Eastern and Oriental worldview. How deeply is it entrenched in that before you take it up?
Yeah, two things I just want to mention too, because I think that this is important, and I think that that distinction is important because people will say, well, isn't God in me? Well, He is. If we're baptized, first of all, we're made in the image and likeness of God. If we're baptized and we are in the state of grace, we're not in mortal sin, then we have a relationship with God and God's life is in us. We're indwelt by the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit comes and takes up residence in us, you might say. But we are not the Holy Spirit. And that's the difference, because when they talk about everything, the pantheistic worldview, if everything is God, then I am God. And this is quite different from the concept or the teaching, the dogma, the truth that the Holy Spirit indwells us when we're in a state of grace. We are always who we are, and God is always who He is. He is God, we are not. We have a relationship with Him, but we are not Him. And the other thing I wanted to say was, Bruce Lee, I think, was probably one of the big ones on the scene that made all of these martial arts something that became so popular. And it's interesting to know his history. And his history is fascinating. He was a Gnostic, for one thing, meaning that he believed that it was salvation. Man saved himself, but he also believed that that man is God. We just have to discover our own divinity. And the other thing about Bruce Lee is that he was virulently anti-Catholic. I think that we have to understand that. I think it's a good thing because I think oftentimes who people get into these, and I don't know if he got into this innocently or not, but a lot of people get involved in these things and they start off just fine and they think that they can hold that separation, and then they become more Hindu or more Buddhist, or more Taoist than they are Catholic. Eventually, one replaces the other, and generally ends up that they forego the way, the truth, and the life for the sake of these other belief systems and practices.
Exactly. That's one of the best examples of that is yoga. There was a study done several years ago now that found that the majority of the people who start out taking yoga classes for exercise end up staying in yoga for the spirituality.
There you go.
They get introduced to it little by little by little by little, and all of a sudden it begins to take them over. So that's a perfect example of what you're talking about there. Yes.
Right. Now tell us though, because I know when we've talked about martial arts in the past, you've mentioned that there is a type of self-defense that I want to say the Israelis use. And so tell us about that.
Yes, there is one. I got to see if I could. Krav Maga. That's what it's called, Krav Maga.
Yes.
And that is a form of self-defense that was used by Israeli Defense Forces, and it means contact combat in Hebrew, and that's how they train recruits in the Israeli Defense Force. And it's based on instinctive responses of a person who's under attack. So it's how you would respond if somebody, say, rushes you face to face. And it takes different techniques from boxing, wrestling, judo, all that kind of stuff. It kind of mixes them all in there. But unlike most martial arts, there's no spiritual component or philosophy with this kind of self-defense. So that's called Krav Maga. That's KravMaga. And I'll tell you, out here in suburbs of Philadelphia, it's not unusual to find Krav Maga shops where they teach it around here.
I saw one in Birmingham. I just can't remember where exactly it was. And I said, "Oh, that's the one that Sue talks about and says it's okay." So if your interest is truly self-defense, there are self-defense courses, classes that you can take that are not tied to any philosophy. Excuse me. And those are the ones that you want to seek out, right?
Yes, that's what I would recommend. That absolutely. I've thought about doing Krav Maga. I just haven't gotten around to doing it yet, but I have thought about it and may do that eventually.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Well, I don't know, friends. What do you think? I think it's a way to protect ourselves and stay safe at the same time. And I have to say, self-defense isn't anything that I really ever much thought about. But as we look at, it's not a terribly bad idea. Here's another one. Please, Jesus, have mercy. This is worry dolls. Let's talk about worry dolls for a moment here.
Oh, yeah, these worry dolls. This is such a strange thing that happened. It was a family whose children were given these worry dolls in school. And for people who don't know what a worry doll is, um, they're little dolls that are made in Guatemala, and they're used primarily by children who can't sleep because they're worried about something. So the belief is that you tell the child to put the doll under the pillow before going to sleep at night, and then you give all your worries to the dolls, and they will take those worries away during the night. Now, legend has it the dolls were first made by two poor children in Guatemala when their mother got sick and the family ran out of food. So they used twigs and scraps of cloth, and they fashioned these little dolls along with sacks for the dolls to sleep in. And the children hoped that the dolls would have magical powers, like the magical dolls in the stories that their grandfather used to tell them. So before going to bed, one of the children asked the dolls for help and then placed them in a sack and put them under her pillow. And the next morning when she woke up, the dolls were out of the pouch and they were laid out in a circle on the table. And because she had slept through the night without worrying, the children believed that this was a sign that the dolls were magical, and that they decided then to take their dolls to the local market, and they began to sell them as magic dolls for a very hefty sum of money, I might add. And then later, when the children returned home, they found the magic dolls they thought they had sold back in their pocket with a tiny note that read, "Tell these dolls your secret wishes. Tell them your problems. Tell them your dreams. And when you awake, you may find the magic within you to make your dreams come true." So obviously, this is a superstition, okay?
Yes.
This is a superstition. It's idolatry. And as the parent explained in the letter to her pastor, which she sent us. She sent us that letter.
This was a Catholic school?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, it was a
geez,
Catholic
Louise.
school. I forgot to mention that, and that was an important point. That, yes, it was a Catholic school, and the child came home from school, last day of school, and she said she was unpacking, and her son was autistic, by the way, and she was unpacking his end-of-the-year bundle that he brought home from school, and he found these little worry dolls in there. And it was 6 figures, 2 adults and 3 children and a dog. And there was an instruction sheet that identified them as Guatemalan worry dolls and told them the whole little ritual to tell their worries to the doll, place the doll under the pillow, and the doll would take the worries away while they slept. Now, this family, they had moved there from Louisiana. They were familiar with the practice of Santeria and voodoo and that sort of thing. She recognized right away that this was wrong.
Yeah.
So she said it upset her, so she contacted the bishop to ask his advice, and the bishop was diabolical.
Whoa.
And said you should burn it while saying the prayer to St. Michael. Yes. And she said it was then that she knew that it was not just me overreacting, that this was disturbing. So she contacted the school, and in short order, of course, the counselor from the school called her, and she said she had given them out to all the 4th graders, and that, she knew all the other counselors in the area that were doing the same thing, as if that made it right. It's like, that just makes it worse. She tried to kind of brush it off as therapy for worried children, saying that she didn't mean to tell the children that the dolls themselves would take care of the problem. But here's the thing, Johnnette, children can't make that distinction.
No.
They're going to think the dolls are doing it.
They're
exactly going to think
right.
that. So anyway, she wrote to the parish, and she also said to them, hey, would you give out prayer cards with the Hail Mary on them? To the 4th grader, this is a religion. You're pushing some sort of a religious belief on children, and you shouldn't be doing it. And in addition to that, you're promoting witchcraft.
Oh, my gosh.
So thankfully, her parish priest did contact a member of the school board, and they did initiate an investigation into the whole thing and put a stop to it. So here's a parent who did something very aggressive about it, but she did it in a nice way, in a very Christian way, but she brought it to the right people's attention, and she shut that down. And then she wrote to us and gave us the story so that we could publish it and let anybody else out there who might find this in their child's book bag because some counselor thinks it's okay for kids to believe that little worry dolls will take away their problems, that they will know what this is and they will destroy it.
It amazes me. It amazes me what goes on in our schools, even our Catholic schools, that we're not aware of. So, the primary educator of our children are the parents. That's what the Catechism says. So we have to be very aware and very alert. And I'm very grateful to this woman, just by point of clarification. Two things. One, and this you'll remember this. Do you remember when they were doing the same kind of a thing with rocks? Kids were getting rocks in classrooms, and it was the same kind of a thing. Put all of your problems and worries on this rock, right? I understand the idea of a visual, and we're incarnational people, but this leads to superstitious practice. Now, when we talk about dolls and these kids putting these dolls under the bed, under their pillow, I'm thinking about all of the little children that like to sleep with a stuffed animal or a baby doll. We're not talking about that kind of a thing, are we?
Absolutely not. This is a doll that you're told to put your secret wishes upon, and she's going to make them come true.
Yeah.
By putting your secret wishes on them and putting them under your pillow. Absolutely not. This is not the same thing as sleeping with a teddy bear. Teddy bear is something to bring you comfort. To bring you comfort and feel like you got a little buddy with you. That's what my teddy bear always was to me. I didn't think it was magical at all. It was just something I held on to while I was sleeping.
When Anthony and I, my first husband and I, got married, his mother gave me his teddy bear.
Oh, that's
I
so
still
cute.
have it. It's a really old little teddy bear, but I still have it. It has no eyes left. But anyway.
No, that was scary the heck out of
Those
somebody.
little bears, he loved the eyes right off of it. We're going to come right back on the other side of the break, friends. Stay with us. Welcome back, friends. You're listening to Women of Grace Live. I'm Johnnette Williams. I've got Sue Brinkmann with me. It's Wednesday. It is Wacky Wednesday, and you've got the Wacky Women of Wednesday with you here today. We're not taking any calls today because we are doing some of the, questions that Sue has answered through the years that have been left for us in our comment bags and other places. And we like to get into these every once in a while, and giving us the opportunity to get deeply into them only happens when we're not taking calls. So that's why we're not taking the calls today. But I think that these are going to be interesting for you. And we've got 3 coming up. We'll see if we get through all 3, Sue. We never know. But we've got 3 coming up here in this last half hour that are the wackiest of some of the ones that she's ever gotten. But you know what? It just tells you that we're very gullible and we're very easily fooled because some of this stuff is just like, are you serious? People do believe in this? You got to be kidding. So we have Dr. Emoto and water awareness. Sue?
Yeah, this is a very, very funny one. I got a real kick out of this one. It's the water awareness, and I have to say water because I'm from Philadelphia.
I know, you go water awareness. Water awareness. That hurts for me to say, water.
Water.
Oh, well,
it hurts for me to say water. That's hard for me to say water awareness. So I'm going to try to do it. But it's based on the preposterous notion that water is conscious and can respond to things such as music, prayers, emotions, and even words. And he has written a book about it, and it provides alleged photographs of water molecules responding to different stimuli. Now, the only problem with those photos is that serious scientists say that the pictures that he's showing are actually ice crystals, not water molecules. So that's just something right off the get-go, there's a problem there. So, but at any rate, he claims to have discovered that human consciousness has an impact on water and can alter its molecular structure. So he says that we have physical evidence to prove that the power of our thoughts can change the world around us because actually it can change water. And to prove his point, he taped words onto jars full of water and observed how the water changed. So positive words such as love and thank you produced beautiful and delicate crystalline patterns, while words such as you make me sick, I want to kill you, produced all kinds of distorted and frightening patterns. Names such as Mother Teresa produced lovely effects, while the name Hitler caused distortion. Now, when he was asked what he thought these crystals were, he claimed, well, they're spirits.
Oh, dear.
Now, the James Randi Educational Foundation reports that Dr. Emoto has his certification from the Open International University of Complementary Medicine, which is an online school founded by an acupuncturist and a homeopath. So that tells you something right there. And if he wants to, he could subject all of his theories to rigorous scientific testing, and the Randi Foundation is offering $1 million if he can claim, that and he can prove that any of this is true. Of course, he hasn't done so. At least I have found no indication that he has ever accepted that challenge. So the whole thing, of course, is more preposterous than I mean, the fact that he's saying that the water responds to words that are taped onto the jar. What does that tell you, Johnnette? It tells you that water can read, which means what? Maybe it could do our homework for us. I mean, water can read. Can you imagine it? It can read. Whoever thought that? I mean, there's a whole lot you could do with that, right? Water can read stuff. So it's when you get stuff like this, and there was a serious question from somebody, is this, what do you think about this water awareness? And I started to read it, and I just was laughing so hard. I just was choking over my drink there, my water, my real water.
Your
which is
real
regular water. Not my water awareness water. And I was choking on it. I was laughing so hard. I thought, no, please, this cannot be serious. But it was perfectly serious. This is perfectly serious.
Well, it's not a far jump. I mean, really and truly, if you follow the thought pattern, if you believe that everything is God, if you believe in this life force, and this life force energy is pure consciousness and it's in everything, then you can see how it can lead you into these, really off the rail ways of thinking.
That's very true.
It's the logical progression. It's the logical progression of illogic. Logic will take you in a logical progression of thought, but something that's illogical just continues to get less logical. But there is an element of this leads to this, this leads to this, this leads to this. It's just that you're going in the wrong direction. And this is how people end up in these silly things. And, and here's the other thing. The evil one, he's looking for gullibility, and he's looking to just use anything he can use to twist, distort, and lead away. So when you start going down those paths, you are opening yourself up. But if you believe that water has consciousness, water does not have consciousness, but if you believe that it does, the evil one is only going to be too happy to use that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And infiltrate it, and then you're off to the races in occultism.
Exactly, because this is exactly what they're doing. That's a very good point that you're making there. Because by beginning to believe things like this, like let's starting out just with this water awareness, just believing that this water has a power of some kind.
Right.
Here we are going down into the occult, where we're counting on and depending upon powers that are not sourced in God. So you're not that far away from beginning now to turn to Satan himself.
Yeah.
Because you're turning to these other objects that you believe have some sort of power in them, which of course they don't. That's like believing in an amulet or a rabbit's foot or something like that. So I can see where that could begin to lead you astray. And I think a lot of that comes from this whole pantheistic belief in chi.
Yeah. It does. Because it's the life force energy. It's not, but I mean, that's the teaching, that's the belief system.
Yes.
So if you believe it's a life force energy, then it has life. And then therefore, unless you're a human person, that life needs to be respected. But if you're a human person, it doesn't.
Exactly.
I mean, when you think about now, that's the illogical part of all this. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, and we've got to protect ourselves. We've got to. It's otherwise we can't identify the counterfeit. And it's got to become a reflexive action in us. I mean, we do have that gift of discernment. We just have to practice it. Well, I pray for Dr. Emoto. May he be delivered from his silly ideas, and may he be held at bay from helping others to believe in the silliness too.
I
Now,
know.
here's another one that you've got in this list of the wackiest blogs. That's the way Sue has listed them. At least for the sake of our show. I don't think it's listed that way out there. Quantum jumping.
hmm This is this one really had me going. The title of the title that I have on this particular blog is "Quantum Jumping is a Leap, All Right, into the Wackiest Hall of Fame," because that's what it is. Quantum jumping is being marketed by a man who is known among his followers as the American Monk, and his credentials include 59 years of studying mysticism and the human mind, while dabbling in hypnotherapy, the occult, Qigong, the Silva method, and a variety of other mind control techniques.
Oh boy.
And he claims to have conducted seminars for heads of states and European royalty. However, in his bio, he doesn't offer any names.
But I wouldn't doubt it. I really wouldn't doubt it.
I was thinking the same thing. I thought, boy, this is a sorry state of the world if this is what's going on here. But here's how he describes quantum jumping. It's a visualization process where you use your mind to jump into parallel dimensions and gain creativity, knowledge, wisdom, skills, and inspiration from alternate versions of yourself.
Oh.
So you can actually go and meet another version of you by jumping over this. And he's figured out how to use thought transference to leap between those dimensions, or universes as he calls them. And that's what quantum jumping is all about. And then he says, well, this might be hard to swallow. Well, yeah, you mean as hard as trying to swallow a piano, maybe? Yeah, it's very hard, very, very hard. But he insists that in these alternate universes, alternate versions of ourselves are actually living out our lives. So in effect, he says, there's a universe where Obama never won the election, where another where Princess Diana is still alive. There's a universe where you are the King of Scotland, and a universe where you are a tea farmer in China. So I need to ask this man, what exactly are you smoking? Because this is totally absurd. I mean, okay, so you're going to meet yourself in another dimension. What are you going to say to yourself? Hey, are things going any better for you there than they are for me here? What are you going to say to yourself?
But you're actually asking yourself, can I just share something? I have a real pet peeve. I really do. I do not like that phrase at all. I don't like it at all, and I've never liked it. When they talk about the best version of yourself in this, I do not like that. We are not versions. Now, you and I know what a version is in writing, right? You've got this version of this version of that, there's this version, there's this, version of a short story that was translated, or this version. I don't like that saying. I don't like it, because we are not a version of ourselves. What we are is constantly supposed to be growing in union with God to become the virtuous person that God has always intended that we would be. If we were not scathed by original sin, now healed from that through baptism, but still scarred with the residual effect. But I'm not a version. There's no version of Johnnette. Johnnette is the same person. It's just that she's growing, hopefully growing. In her relationship with God as she goes through the years. To me, it's almost like it's a fake self. And that's what this is. It's a fake self.
Well,
this isn't the real version of you, No, I'm not a version of me. I might not be on my best behavior in a given moment, but it's not a version of me. It's me committing sin or it's me doing good. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, what he's doing here is creating like an imaginary friend.
Well,
and that imaginary friend is this other supposedly is you. Of course, it's not you. It's totally not you.
No, and we're not leaping into other dimensions. And the only way you leap into other dimensions is by doing heavy drugs, psychedelics primarily, that expand the mind. You can see all kinds of things doing that kind of stuff. But
yeah.
That's a dissociation. Maybe this guy has dissociation personality disorder, schizophrenia or something. I don't know.
I don't know. He's making money on it. He sells the whole package that teaches you how to quantum jump for $167. So, I mean, and he claims that this astonishing discovery was made by leading scientists such as Stephen Hawking and Mikio Keku and
Well, you don't
Neil
have to go much
Turok
further
and all
than
that.
that.
And of course, there's no proof of any of that, and that these people, who were discovering the possibility of multiple universes when trying to pinpoint the location of an atomic particle. Now, he gives you no proof of any of that. Nothing.
Well, this is what I would do. I would suggest everybody that wants to do some quantum leaping, be sure to take your cell phone with you and have somebody take a picture of you and your other self that you can bring back and show the rest.
I know. I mean, I just think it's so funny. But people are
it's so
spending
sad.
money on it. That's almost $200 to do this. And I think, are you that upset with yourself or disillusioned with yourself and with life in general that you're going to go try to find another? You think you can try to fix it by finding another version of yourself that's really just kind of like in the imagination of this man who created this whole idea? I mean, there's nothing to it. There's no ground to this. I guess maybe that's me, that part of my brain that takes after my father was a physicist and an engineer that says that, wait a minute, I'm not standing on any ground here. This is all okay. We're just going to jump into this other dimension by the power of our thoughts. We're just going to transfer those thoughts to it. It's like, no.
Well, if you don't believe that every human person is irrepeatable, and created uniquely by God, then you put yourself at the mercy of all kinds of strange theories and ideas and stuff. Here's one. I'm looking at my producer, Jeff. Do we have time for one more? Oh, we've got time. Good. Here's one. This is one of your wackiest blogs. Psychic conjures spirit of Cecil the lion.
This was when. Do you remember when the American dentist? He went into Zimbabwe and he killed Cecil the lion, which was a very famous lion, and he killed the lion. And
Why was he famous? Do you know?
He was just a famous lion. He was just, I don't know. I'm looking down here and see if we can say why exactly.
Sorry. I didn't mean to ask you
what made him so
wasn't at the ready.
What made him so famous? He had been living in this game preserve for a very long time, and he was apparently lured out of the preserve by 2 hunters, and he was shot with a crossbow. And the animal survived the wound and was tracked then for 2 days before the hunters once again caught up with him and shot him to death. So they did a terrible thing to this innocent animal. It was a horrible thing that they did. And it was all over the news. It was all over the news when this happened. This was back like in 2015. It was about, 6 or 7 years ago now. And anyway, this particular animal communicator claimed that she had made contact with the deceased lion. And she wrote about it on her Facebook page that she just connected with Cecil. And she said, I wanted to let him know how loved and honored he is. And she said, I was moved to tears to hear his words. His message is profound. And he said, let not the action of these few men defeat us or allow darkness to enter our hearts. If we do, then we become one of them. Raise your vibration and allow this energy to move us forward. So I guess Cecil was a very new age lion because he's talking all about vibrations and energy and all this kind of stuff. So
he was not a Catholic lion.
No, not a Catholic lion at all. He's a new ager. Raise your vibration. Like, do we really believe that the lion said that? I mean, that she even connected with the lion. But she claims that she is a specialist, and she specializes in speaking to deceased pets of her clients. She charges $75 for a 15-minute session with up to 2 animals. Now, how well she does at this disreputable trade is up to the person with the wallet, I suppose. But it really is something. This lady who tried to communicate with Cecil and claims she did, she's been on the record of communicating with 4 cats of somebody who was writing about her on another newspaper, that two were dead cats and 2 were living. None of the animals seemed very interested in talking with her, and their supposed communications were less than remarkable. But yeah, she claims to have been able to communicate psychically with animals, both dead and alive, from a very young age. So I thought, okay,
Well, now I did find something out here that Cecil, he was famous in Zimbabwe. He was 12. and he was the dominant male, and he was the most handsome of his pride, and he
Oh,
had a black mane, and he is very pretty. You have a picture of him on the blog. I mean, he is beautiful. There's something majestic about lions. Scary, but very majestic. Uh, but so we've got psychics that can talk to dead people, psychics that can talk to dead animals, right?
mm-hmm,
Psychics that talk to living people who want to know
mm-hmm.
what their future is. But it's all, if they're not charlatans, then they're consorting with spirits.
Absolutely, they're considering spirits. But in this case, I'm going to have to say, I want to take the former. It's a charlatan of some kind because the
Yeah.
words that she's putting into this dear lion's mouth, um, how he says that he's not going to discuss any more about how he was killed. He just told her what happened does not need to be discussed as it is what it is. Oh wow, he's using really modern language to say that. And he says, "Take heart, my child. I am finer than ever, grander than before, as no one can take our purity, our truth, or our soul. Ever, I am here. Be strong and speak for all the others who suffer needlessly to satisfy human greed. Bring light and love, and we will rise above this." So, I mean, he was very talkative, very chatty.
Well, he was
But
articulate, I must say. Very well read. This was a very well read lion.
yes, yes. But I mean, really, what's happening here? What upset me about it is she's capitalizing on the senseless death of this magnificent animal, whose only
Yes.
crime was to be included in a list of wild game that some well-to-do hunters consider to be trophies.
Hmm.
So what's she doing? She's claiming a 15-minute of fame, and I call it a 15-minute of shame. I mean, what
Yeah.
happened with what that dentist did was a terrible thing. He certainly was chastised all over the media when this happened, and then she has to leap on this and come up with this thing. Oh yeah, I contacted Cecily, he talked to me personally, and told him
Well,
all this
it was
wacky
good for
new age
business,
stuff.
probably.
Yeah, it was wonderful for her business. It's going to really lift her up there. And then what's worse is she got media coverage
Yeah.
for this supposed message from him. And it's like, what is wrong with you? It's like, don't you
Well,
guys check anything?
and if you go out there and you, excuse me, you Google Cecil the lion, I mean, here's one. There's an article that was written in 2022. Cecil the lion 7 years later. And then somebody's actually written a book, Cecil the Lion, 5 years on, 2020. It's not a book, I don't
Very
think I think
popular.
it's an article. Anyway, he was made even more famous. And we never want to be cruel to animals. We never want to be cruel to animals. Neither do we want to invest powers in animals other than that which is theirs by the way in which God created them, you know?
Exactly.
And that, and this is what we keep doing. Oh, we don't, but and I'm not saying this to our listening audience. I'm not saying you do. I'm saying the culture. Our culture continues to invest power in things that have no power instead of investing it in God, because our God is a moral God and a just God. And that means that they'll be held accountable, and they don't want to be held accountable for anything, and they don't want a morality other than the one that they want to follow. So they invent stuff.
Exactly. They invented. That is a good word for it because I'll tell you, in all these years of researching, that is really what this all comes down to. The whole new age is nothing but an invention.
Hmm.
It's a construct of somebody's imagination out there, and they put it together with these really tremendous looking websites, state of the art stuff, and they love to sell it with testimonials.
Oh, yes.
People who say, this worked for me. This is the same thing that was going on, 150 years ago with the snake oil salesman who would run around with the snake oil and say, listen, this is going to cure everything, anything that ails you. And they would parade around with them people who say, yes, it helped me. It did this, this, and that. No science. Nobody checked it out. Everybody just took it as far as testimonials are concerned. And I'm finding that this is very common in the new age. And with all these different kinds of alternative medicines and that sort of thing, it's all testimonials. They rarely have any science that's attached to it. And whatever science is attached to it, most of it is poor methodology and doesn't support their claims. So when you
There
really
you have
read it,
it.
it doesn't support their
Well,
claims.
it just shows that people are desperate, and instead of running to the God who can help them in their
Yes.
desperation, they run off to myths and fables. Well, Sue,
Yes.
thank you for helping to keep us grounded in the way, the truth, and the life, and we appreciate you so much. And friends, I hope that you've appreciated this little episode of Wacky Wednesday, where we're dipping into some of the comment calls that have been left for us, etc., and resolving them. God bless you now. Bye-bye. Well, that was
Okay.
great, Susie.